Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the KONTAINEROZ podcast. The podcast is sponsored by PortPro, the leading operating system for drayage carriers. Schedule a demo today at portpro.io. Episode 41. Today we have Jamie Morales in the studio. Hello, Jamie.
Hey, Luis. How are you?
Glad to have you here
Glad to be here.
on a Sunday. Thanks for making time for the interview. And yeah,
I was a little late, but I know you have a grace period, right?
yeah, I was okay. Yeah. I put that question on here, but I'm gonna be nice. Okay. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm 26 years old. I know I don't seem like I am, but 26 years old. I grew up in Compton, Paramount area. What else can I say? I'm into the drayage scene at the moment. I have been for a couple years now. And just trucking overall. I grew up mostly in the city of Paramount, Long Beach, Compton. My dad and my uncle owned a little shop right here between Santa Fe and PCH. So I was just around logistics all my life. And then growing up, having family in the industry, just hearing them talk about the industry, it just kind of piqued my interest. And then here I am now.
Yep. In the big world of drayage. But literally, how did you end up here? Like, in it?
In
Yeah.
the drayage industry. So I started as a customer service rep. And I was like, okay, I like customer service. I like helping people. So let me go into customer service.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't necessarily for drayage or trucking. It was more for like a car parts, But I've pretty much had like every job you can think of. Like I was a cashier at Disneyland. And then after that, I worked for a law firm. After that, I worked for car parts place. It's a really famous place, but
What, like AutoZone?
no,
O'Reilly?
it's Motor Car Parts of America.
Oh, not that famous.
Yeah, not
I
that famous,
never heard
but
of them.
it was corporate. It was in Torrance,
Okay.
and I mean, it was like the first like actual corporate job that I had. So,
But not at the store, like looking up parts or
No.
like customer service, like when they call in and complain or what?
no, I was the receptionist. My
Oh.
cousin actually got me the job, so
Oh, okay.
I was a receptionist there. But it was my first insight at like a corporate job, and actually, the CEO would often come up to the front. I didn't know why, but then one of the ladies hinted, it's like because your desk is so low, and they get to, take a peek. I was like, oh, sweet.
Oh,
I didn't know that.
yeah.
But
Awkward.
yeah, I know, right? And then I went into customer service for another car parts company in Santa Fe Springs. And then after that, I think a position was open for a dispatcher that my cousins actually were helping this company get set up.
Mm-hmm.
And they were drivers. So they helped their friend. They're like, hey, you have all the accounts, And this is just what I heard them saying, like, yeah, we told them, get your own team of drivers and we'll, get your accounts and we'll help you. And, I mean, that company, it's off the 710, and you can see that it has containers all down the street. They're pretty, well off now. And
You helped with that?
I didn't help, but they were looking for a dispatcher, and I was willing to help. But because I was a girl and I had, my son, they were like, nah, it's not for you. It's more for a male. And they gave it to my little cousin, who's my same age. And, but he was, single, no kids, going to school. And they thought, hey, perfect, person to fill in for the job. But I was like, I could do it, I want to keep learning. And they're like, nah, like, I felt like because I was a girl and because of my responsibilities, he was more the better option. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to get into it one way or another.
Yeah.
So then I started transloading for a company in Long Beach that dealt with overweight containers. And that's when I started learning the terminals, the terminology, kind of setting appointments, how to look at the appointment systems.
Yeah.
At that time, eModal wasn't up yet. So I was just pretty much looking at the terminals and, going through the terminals. We had drayage companies, trucking companies doing the appointments for us. So I would just request it from them and just kind of keep a schedule or keep track of their schedule. But like it's never really promised. And I would be in constant communication with the dispatcher to know when our containers were coming in. Aside from that, after that position, they kind of told me, hey, go into imports, go into, getting the arrival notices. There's more money in that. And they kind of made it seem like the trucking was like the bottom of like, nah, you don't want to go into trucking. Go into like the arrival notices, the brokering, the freight forwarding. Go into that because it's more, I guess you could say, it's better than going into the trucking. So I was like, okay, I went with it. And I started doing export documentation for any export loads. So I was sending all the, documentation, anything that had to do with customs clearance, so that customs can like clear the load and say, all right, these are good to go. You're good to go. It's approved.
Who sent you that, or how did you obtain that? Like the paperwork or whatever?
From the customers directly, like
Okay.
the packing list, the warehouses, they would send me a packing list, and then I would also get it cleared from it's not FDA. It's like, because it was mostly like walnuts and food products, so they had to also go through a fumigation process before being sent overseas. So I had to get that approval and send it into the, to customs to get it cleared.
That's where you see those containers that have the doors open and they kind of keep them away from other ones, huh?
Yeah, because they have to go through a fumigation process before they actually get on the ship.
What are other things a variety of things that you see get fumigated for export?
Well, mostly agricultural, anything agricultural. I remember when we were shipping out tile, one time we found a lizard. It was a weird lizard in the warehouse, and then everybody was just running around trying to catch the lizard. Was
he trying to get them to save on their insurance? Or no?
Maybe. I mean,
Man.
At that cargo insurance.
I saw it at a shipper's yard, I think, container that was fumigated. In that occasion, it had like, imagine like a tree got cut down, and like the whole trunk, like all of it, fit in that 40-foot container. Maybe like 5 trunks were in there.
Oh, shoot. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was
they're
interesting.
Pretty big, so.
They would fumigate a piece of a big giant trunk.
Yeah, because they have to get all the termites, all any foreign insects, and,
Even the insects they don't like the foreign insects either, huh?
Yeah, they had to get TSA approved.
Well, and then after that?
After that, I kind of was like over exports and I wanted to do something else, but I still stuck to freight forwarding. I was exporting all kinds of goods. I think I exported soap dispensers, paint, big machinery. But at this point I was dealing with agents overseas. So I had maybe an agent in Chile reach out to me like, hey, I have a customer. Can you do the export? And I was setting up the trucking and everything, providing the documentation to the truckers, getting it loaded in our warehouse if possible. If it was like a load in Texas, then I'd go ahead and reach out to a warehouse over there, carriers out there. I remember our hardest carriers to find would be in like Kansas, that area over there, because you don't really have a lot of communication and it's a lot of owner operators dealing by their own account, and it's kind of hard to get in contact with a big company that can cover those areas.
I get confused. Like, what's there's seems you know a lot of stuff, so I'm already confused trying to keep up.
Why?
Can we go back to freight forwarder?
Freight forwarding.
Can you provide a brief description of that, like what they do?
So freight forwarding, you pretty much get a load from a customer, and then they want you to like push the load, find a carrier, and depending on the code, on the terms that they have with the customers and the steamship lines,
Yeah.
the Incoterms, I believe they're called, then that's how you charge the freight. And then kind of through those Incoterms, you determine whether you're going to set up the trucking company and the steamship line, or the customer already sets it up for you, or if the receiving party is going to go ahead and set that up for you. You're pretty much the middleman. So you have the overview of the customer, the consignee, the steamship line that you're using. So the freight forwarder pretty much knows where the shipment is going, who's going to handle the shipment, and who's going to take care of the trucking and all the smaller portions.
So it's like a broker, because earlier you said you got to find the carrier to move it. So it's like a broker, but with more responsibilities, huh?
Yes.
A broker
Exactly.
would kind of line up the trucks and all the processes as well.
And so make sure that you submit documentation to customs prior to the shipment, the container even arriving at the terminal, and make sure that it doesn't sit there, because you're also in charge of the per diem. You're supposed to guarantee that the customer doesn't accrue any per diem before the receiving date, and then once it arrives at the destination, you get in contact with that freight forwarder. You make sure you provide them all the details of the shipment so that they can go ahead and process the arrival notices and then get it going like they need to do.
Did you ever mess up? Do you have a story about screwing up with that job?
If I did, it was never brought to my attention.
Oh, okay.
But it was one of my hardest jobs that I've ever had. I remember I would call crying, and I would feel like I couldn't manage everything, like multiple shipments, because you have to stay on top of them. You have to kind of make sure that you have a time frame to make sure the container is loaded or unloaded, or at the terminal by a certain date, or make sure that it doesn't arrive too early, because then that's a storage fee, and then it'll be billed back to you. So honestly speaking, anywhere in the industry, my least favorite job was freight forwarding.
But it sounds like you got to make bank with all that.
Yeah, you have to. But at the same time, if you mess up even by, getting the container out too soon, you're eating up all these charges. Like if you submit your I think it's called the SLI, I forgot. But if you submit that documentation wrong, you could get fined up to 10 grand. And who eats that? The company. And you're being fined by customs. You're being fined by them. It's not like some random person, and you can't bill it back to the customer, because the customer's like, hey, I provided all these details to you. If you had questions, you could have asked me. So because you didn't, then that's on you. So it's so easy to throw those charges back at the freight forwarding company. You pretty much have to be very detail oriented, very, immaculate with how you process your documentation and your work. So
what if the customer wants to import a bunch of bootleg Louis Vuitton bags, and then that gets intercepted by customs?
Right.
Are you considered an accomplice, or right there you can?
Well, not really, because you don't see the freight being loaded.
Oh, okay.
You can be, because you have to get all the details. I mean, these are scenarios I thought of in my head as well, and I just wouldn't go into depth with them because it'll give me anxiety.
Yeah, right. Like, is it bags or is it people? What, you never know what's in it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. You never know. And you are submitting this documentation. You are making sure that it's accurate. So you have contact to the warehouse. But it's only contact via phone call. You don't see the freight actually being loaded. So.
My sister opened up a beauty salon, and she ordered 10 tables from China.
Mm-hmm.
And she paid for the tables, but they made them after she paid for them. They don't have them right there sitting around. They only make them on demand.
Right.
But she went through an interesting thing where she didn't know. I feel that maybe there's a big gray area where people could get ripped off with agents or freight forwarders. Like, you don't know who you're talking to over there, especially with that Alibaba. All these, like,
No, yeah,
you know, you got to buy a
definitely.
minimum of I don't know what, and we won't start making it until we get the payment, and then you don't know if you're going to hear back from them. And then they say they got to do the duties. That's what I remember, the duties. Like, because she would just message back and forth with this Asian lady. Duties. Like, what? Like, all these fees. Like, how do you know? How can you play it safe if you're going to import something from?
Well, this is why a lot of customers need to
Use
do
people
their,
like.
do their research on the freight forward company that they're going to be using. Because, for instance, there is a lot of fees that go into freight forwarding. There is a lot of, and this is what the Incoterms kind of clarify, who's going to pay what and who's in charge of what duties, what charges. So I know one thing, my boss, and she always told me, hey, watch out for the FOB loads, FOB term loads. And I was like, why? What's FOB?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
And then she's like, because FOB doesn't specify if the shipper is responsible to pay till the final delivery or it's coming from the consignee. So there was a very vague kind of responsibility on who it sits. So that's why they're like, no, it's FOB terms. And I'm like, yeah, that's why I'm charging you. No, it goes to the consignee. So once you charge the consignee, they're like, no, it's FOB terms. You charge the shipper. So she's like, you have to be very careful and kind of make sure you get that clarified from the beginning. Who's responsible for these charges? Is it the shipper or the consignee? Because now you're like stuck. You already paid 38 grand to ship this container and everything, got it all cleared only so they could, fight the charges and then sometimes not even get paid.
So shipper is like the guy that made the fake Louis bags. Yeah. That's the shipper.
That's the shipper.
The consignee is the person here that said, I want to fill up a container with your product.
The consignee is the
buyer?
person that buys the product. Okay. Yeah.
Cool. We're learning here. Did you have experience with those containers where, like, because that's how my sister got her tables. Like, she obviously wasn't gonna pay for the shipping cost of a FCL, full container load. Is that good?
Yeah, that's good.
All right. So she had to add the goods in a mix of various other products. So is that one of those containers that a freight forwarder would not want to mess with? It sounds like a lot of paperwork.
Yeah, consolidated load.
Yeah, it ended up being at STG.
St. George.
Yeah, it ended up at a warehouse where they unloaded it, and then she had 6 days to go get it. So
in this case, the freight forwarder has to provide you the shipment ID or the house bill of lading number because it doesn't go by bill of lading, master bill of lading, where it's like the whole container. Now you're just a portion of that container, so you need the house bill of lading because that'll give you access to just your freight. Yeah, so that was
a headache, man. I know. I remember I got caught up in that. It's like at the end of the day, I think she ended up paying more for the service than the actual product. It's like wasn't even worth it. But she got some cool tables though, and then we still had to build the motherfuckers. I ended up having to take them to my garage. She lives up north, like Fresno area, right? So it's like. So everything was a fee, so now that was the closest area to take the container to, and then I happen to live down the street, so it's like.
So you still got access to the container, even though it came in a consolidated container?
We had to. The lady that we were talking to, she said we had to hire someone. We hired some guy with a box truck.
Yeah.
He went to go get it, but we sent I forgot the details, but. We didn't literally go over there. I think we could have gone, but I didn't have the adequate vehicle at the moment.
Yeah, because I know with Consolidated Freight, they're in charge of getting the container from the terminal and returning it.
Yeah, they did all that.
Yeah. They just get the freight.
Yeah, we had to go pick it up at... Basically, like if you had a P.O. box, the St. George becomes your P.O. box. Like, let me go get my package, right? But we were responsible to pay someone to go get it, and... I think that guy said he has the cheap freight. I think he was like under $200.
Oh, okay.
To take it and drop it off.
Yeah, bobtails. I mean, I dealt with that a little bit, but I don't see. I mean, I have one of my colleagues who's very knowledgeable with bobtail freight,
Mm-hmm.
and then he's like, "Yeah, there's a lot of money in it." And I'm like, "How?" I don't see it. I haven't learned it
Yeah,
yet.
I was like, man, I don't know how this guy is meeting his quota. I
Right.
hope his operating cost is really low because to do that work, because I know the long wait times that I've heard people endure at that place.
Any
Excuse me.
airline, no, you're fine.
And
Any airline, it's ridiculous. I mean, they'll keep the drivers there a full day and a full night, and then be like, "Oh, we can't find your freight." Like, and then the storage is ridiculous. I mean, we're at the port; it's like $200 a container.
Mhm.
With air freight, they go by the weight. So, like, if it's 2 pounds, I think they charge you by pound, and if it's like what 300 pounds, then $300 a day. If it's 15, 14 pounds, like 1,500 pounds, then they'll charge you 1,500 per day.
Let's run that scenario real quick to see how people make money out of it. Like, so there's the warehouse is involved at this point. Box trucks are involved. Whoever you pay duties to is involved.
The freight forwarder.
Yeah, they're involved.
The
Carrier that's gonna go take it
carrier.
out of the terminal is involved. The steamship line is involved.
Well,
With
in this case, it'll be if it comes in a container, yeah. I'm thinking air freight because
you think that alters the cost of shipping the container if it's a consolidated load?
it does. It very much does.
It's like you get the bag. I'll do a. Hopefully, it's not a horrible analogy. Like, let's say you get this big bag of Snickers at Costco, let's say, right? Versus selling them individually. You'll make
Yeah.
more individually, right?
Right.
Is that you think they double up on
It is.
shipping a container like that has
They-
multiple
they go-
consignees?
They go based on weight and dimensions,
Mm.
and that's how they charge it. And this is another reason why I had a hard time freight forwarding, because when I would get LTL loads, I would just forward it to, like, shout out to Vanguard, Vanguard Logistics, because they deal with LTL freight. And I'll just be like, hey, give me a charge for this, this a pallet. These are the dimensions. This is the weight. ¿Cuánto me cobras? And then the hard part there was you're turning the weight into cubic feet or whatever, because that's how much it's going to take of wherever they're shipping it on, the container.
Yeah.
So they're charging you by the space. They don't charge you by by dimensions and weight. That's what they're based on.
Is there a reason to lie on that? Like, and if you do get caught lying and it's not the appropriate size?
Then they either won't ship it, or they'll tell you, hey, give me the correct weight and dimensions. Because then you're also when you're picking up the freight, they go based on the weight and to determine that is your cargo.
Man, and that sounds like an inconvenience. Like, imagine my sister lied about the dimensions of those tables. Would she have been the one responsible for providing measurements, or the shipper? The shipper, right?
Shipper, yeah.
So if they were dishonest to save,
Then
now let's say there's 10 people filling up that container.
Uh-huh.
Customer number 10, their shit doesn't fit, and now they're affected by someone else. Like, it sounds like a lot of things could go wrong with that type of shipment.
Exactly. And they'll actually stop it. They won't load it. They'll be like, hey, please resubmit your, shipping instructions. It was wrong. Like, it's not the correct weight. It's not, there's people they're checking. Like,
Okay,
it's
okay.
not going to be like, oh, yeah, she's going to get away with it. No, they're checking the actual dimensions. I think the dimensions is more important than the weight, because I have had shipments that come in and they're the incorrect weight. The actual weight is different than what.
We all know everybody lies about that, man. There's some overweight containers, and then it shows cargo weight 42. Interesting. All the containers weigh the same, and it's different commodities. Like, come on.
Yeah. So that was actually one of my questions. What is overweight considered for you? Because I had so much pushback with this. This is an ongoing argument that we have all the time.
Yeah.
Initially, I thought it was anything over 38,000 pounds. Then it was anything over 80,000 pounds. And then it's...
Yeah, well, I'm a little rusty now, but I remember when we were doing land bridge, if the cargo weight on a 40-foot container was more than 42,500, it was overweight.
anything over 40.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it was lower for 20 footers. I think I'm just gonna throw a number out there. Let's say, nah, I'm not gonna throw a number out there. It might be way off, but basically, obviously, it's gonna
The drivers
differ with the
notice.
size of the container. You know.
Well, that's true. The reason I'm asking is because I had a lot of drivers calling me like, hey, this container is heavy. Because you guys can kind of feel when you're going with the container, and you feel when it's heavy. But then we were getting a lot of the customers like, what? No, it's not overweight. Like, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? And I'm like, maybe they don't even know.
That's the thing too. Like a lot of drivers, they don't want to do the extra work where you reposition the fifth wheel. Like you could make it legal as long as the overall is 80 or less. Overall combined, everything together. Mm-hmm. Then it's up to you to distribute the weight properly. But then sometimes you're unable to, like if it's the trailer axle and that one is not like slidable or not, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And
then everything you do there will affect the other weight. So now you mess with the weight in the back. Now you're overweight in the front. So it's like, So sometimes if it's not fixable, then,
you charge it as an overweight?
Overweight there was one that was overweight on the axle. I allegedly charged an extra $500. Mm-hmm. Because I had to take a risk with it.
And did the customer...
They paid it.
Well, that's good. You see, you have those customers.
But I had to provide proof. Like, look.
Yes. Always provide proof.
I made all my adjustments. I'm maxed out as far as, like, what I can do. I have no choice but to take it because it was my drive axle. Mm-hmm. So all the freight right there, that's where you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that would require, like, what you mentioned earlier, transload.
Yeah.
I'm going to do all that. I'm already hooked up. So.
Or what if it's freight that can't be transloaded? What if it's like one piece?
Yeah.
So then you're stuck with, Yeah. And on such short notice, how would you... I know that there's day permits for overweight containers, that you can get. But on such short notice, how do you just get a day permit,
There's different equipment that would screw it all up, That's why a lot of like the overweights, people that move overweights, they have day cabs, to reduce some weight. Even the equipment, you see some equipment with like, let's say like a low boy with a bunch of like little triangles and a bunch of holes. It's like to make it lighter, Oh, you see those chassis with a lot of big giant holes?
Yeah.
Yeah, they reduce weight. It makes a difference. Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah, but where were we? I think I lost my train of thought now. You don't remember either?
Dude, I'm the worst person.
Oh, yeah, we got on that overweight thing. Like, what is overweight? So.
Yeah, but we were on LCL cargo.
Yeah. So, yeah, a container with a variety of customers and consignees.
Consignees, yeah. The tricky containers.
All right, let's go to the next question. And do you think you know enough now to start like your own company in something around drayage?
I know enough. I mean, to start it, but to keep it up and running, I wouldn't. I feel like when you start something like that, you don't want to let anybody down. So it's a lot of pressure. What
would you start though? Like, because there's obviously like what you mentioned, there's a lot of opportunities in drayage. So what would you go for?
So, I mean, and even now, I think that I'm still learning the process and it's evolving. This, I want to say this field it evolves and you never stop learning. Like there's always something new to learn in it every day. But I'd say, just getting a team of drivers, and I was always for company drivers, but sadly I wouldn't be able to start with company drivers because of their payroll, and that would take a lot more someone who would invest more, and then I guess making sure you had at least one really good account to get you going and keep them busy, because they eat off of every load that you give them. So, and then take it from there.
Sounds good. Do you think certain company owners, they gotta watch out or beware of their own employees that they train running off and starting something?
I mean, you could, and that's I think what scares a lot of people in the industry, sharing too much knowledge. But it's so great to work in an environment where people are not, you know, scared to share that knowledge, you know, because there's a lot of people that are willing to learn that don't want to come up in here and take your job, you know, they just want to learn and they'll stick. I feel like people, even though they're not making the most money, if you put them in a really good environment where it's not hostile, where it's not like, oh, yo no quiero ayudar a esta, you know, like she might learn more and go with it. Like, I feel if you're on a environment where you teach each other, you motivate each other, you keep each other on your toes, you push each other to do better, I feel like you would be like, hey, I want to work for this company. I want to see this company grow. I want to be a part of that than to run off, do your own thing and just, you know.
Yeah. A lot of times they see the blueprint and they think it'll apply to them as well. But they don't have the same relationship with that customer or the same charisma, or there's something missing. Like, just because someone did it this way, that it won't, doesn't mean it'll work for you.
Exactly.
And then you burn that bridge and now you're not welcome.
Exactly.
So
I feel like that happens a lot. Like, people, you know, take an idea, run with it, and then it's like, oh, pero no me salió, and then they come back and it's like, well, you know.
You think some people get like bitter, like, or like, ¿cómo se dice? Like, not resentment, but damn, I need some. You heard my ankle pop? I'm getting old, man. You think some people feel like envidia, like, man, like, that have access to like how much the boss is making, and be like, this fool should pay me more, like.
Exactly. And I feel like people do, I mean,
do they feel entitled?
They feel entitled. Yeah. Like, oh, well, I do this for you, I should be getting this. But in all reality, they don't take into consideration the cost that it takes. Like what you asked me earlier, do you have what it takes to start a company? And there's a lot that goes into it. What if a truck breaks down? What are you going to do? How do you fix it? How do you get in contact with the mechanic that's not going to overcharge you? And being a woman in the industry, it's kind of like you have to have your connections already set before you run off and do something like that, you know, because you also don't want to be paying more than what you need to.
Yeah.
Or, you know, because I heard like some of my colleagues when I was starting up, and they're like, damn, dude, like you would say some crazy things, but you sounded so confident with it. Like I told one of the warehouse employees, I was like, if you don't have a Class A, you can't be, you know, driving the yard goat. And they looked at me like, no, yeah, I had some crazy stories, but they're like, but you know, you ran with it. I mean, we all looked at each other like, this lady's crazy, but you know, so maybe I'd like to like learn more before I actually jump into starting my own company.
What do you feel you need to learn more about?
I would say being comfortable with the rates, and just like, because different drivers charge in different ways. Some charge by mile, some charge by hey, you know, just knowing your drivers. I feel that it's really important when you start a company, and just getting acquainted with the right customers and the right accounts.
So the numbers, right? Because you don't want to quote something and then realize that that's what your drivers are going to quote, and now there's nothing left for you.
Exactly.
Or there can be some left for you, but at this point you already took a deal, and in order for it to work, you got to lower it because you got to make a profit.
Exactly.
And now you're stuck with that because nobody wants to do it.
So, like, my way of thinking is, if you get something, pulling like $100 out of it, but you get 80 loads, 80, 100. It's consistent work.
Yeah.
So you have a couple drivers, you're like, all right, I'm going to pay you, you know, almost what I'm making. I'm only going to take like 100, which is just to cover the admin work. But, you know, and especially if they're owner operators, then they service their own trucks. Prefiero que ellos ganen más, and to be able to be comfortable, than to be like, oh, nah, you know, I'm taking like $1,000 from them, and then they don't have enough to like, oh, Jamie, I need a day off, you know? And then I just...
You feel you need to be transparent or not? Because sometimes they'll be like, for some reason, even though they're eating they're eating too. It just bugs them to know that they're losing 100 to you, even though they're making 350 or 400. It's
in
like,
that case, I think that's more personal because
you wouldn't be open to them, like knowing or a percentage, or it is what it is.
it's usually inconvenient because you never know.
Yeah.
It might rub someone the wrong way. And
Oh, how about this? She's making 100, so she must be charging a certain amount. Why don't I go direct and charge them, a little less, and then
and that's, I think there's contracts for that, isn't there? That
a non-compete or something like that. Non-compete
like
agreement.
you can't reach out. And I did have, where I started working at, actually, they did do that. It was flatbeds.
Okay.
And one of the flatbed companies reached out directly to the customer for work. And I remember my boss like suing that company.
Straight up suing, like no warning, no season.
Yeah, just like, I'm gonna sue you because you went above me, and that's just bad business. Like I feel like you don't ever want to do that, because let's say, and this was like seasonal work too. Like, let's say se les acaba el trabajo, and now you see that the person you stepped over their toes, like, they still got loads coming in. They have other accounts. They have other connections. And then you went and ruined your relationship over this one, customer who you didn't know whether they had a lot or they had a little, but now they don't have anything. And now how are you going to get,
Como dice DJ Khaled, you played yourself.
You played yourself, yep. So I just feel like you don't ever want to do that. Or, give your drivers enough, because at the end of the day, you don't know what their situations are. And trucks, I know for a fact that they're not like, a little expense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but some get greedy with it. Like, we're in a time where like company drivers want to get paid like owner operators, and owner operators want to get paid like a big fleet, like a carrier all in, but they are not taking the same responsibilities and risks. So exactly. I think that needs to be talked about a little more.
And I feel, and it's all knowledge and schooling, your drivers. Like, maybe not schooling, don't put it that way, but sharing the knowledge and letting them know, like, hey, but, I still have to wash the truck or do the repairs, pay for the repairs, pay the lease on the truck, which is not something that's, inexpensive.
Yeah. You could take some of these profits, but the condition is you got to take some of the expenses.
Right?
Would you take it? Yeah, that's what I thought. So, obviously, like, as far as the ports and all that, what drivers complain about, like waiting
time,
stuff like that, right? So, in your field, by the way, what is your current field? You're dispatching right now, right?
Or not at the moment. I was working on this project. So, like you said, what would be the steps that you take to start your own company? Right now, I'm working on a project, and now it's safe to say because Brandon's coming on board. So, and new logistics. We kind of don't know. I don't know the route we're going to take with it, but I think it's more so going to be brokering.
Okay.
Outloads.
Okay. So I kind of... Okay, give me a second. Let me write that down so we could touch on that subject. But I was asking if we know that drivers complain about waiting. Mm-hmm. So in your current position, in what you do, what is there to complain about in that?
Waiting time. I mean, I think waiting time. Yeah, because waiting time doesn't only apply at the ports. Waiting time applies at the Amazon warehouses, at the distribution centers, which is mostly where a lot of carriers are actually delivering to now, because now they're becoming more common. Distribution centers, customer-wise, at the customer warehouses where they're getting loaded or unloaded. Just live unloads not a lot of carriers want to do them. They prefer drops. But then again, if you drop a container or trailer, you're risking your equipment. You're risking leaving your equipment at that yard and then it disappearing in some way, shape, or form. So live unloads would be better. Back to the question, waiting time, they complain about you know, wherever they go deliver, if they're, you know, friendly or not. Just like, you know, I'm just doing my job. I don't know what their problem is. Like, can you talk to them? Can you talk to a supervisor? What's going on? I know restrooms are a big issue. Also, because of the waiting time that the drivers are having to endure, they need time where they can, you know, go to a restroom or take their lunch even.
Yeah. And now there's more women involved, so they can't just pee in a bottle.
Exactly.
Although it's not like, I gotta say it happens. It's not like, you know.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you said they you know, relieve themselves in a not in a toilet. Shit, I wish. In a bucket and in a Gatorade bottle, you know, like. So, yeah, that's one thing. But dispatchers, what do they complain about?
Oh gosh, I mean, I would have to say the customer being non-responsive. I have a driver there and the customer's nowhere to be found. That just caused a delay where I could have had this driver already at the terminal, you know, getting another load for me. They're over there waiting for the customer, and just like bad scheduling on the customer's part, or just miscommunication when it comes to like, hey, you told me you would be here. Just time. Everything in this industry is time sensitive for your drivers, for the dispatchers, for everyone.
What do you wish more drivers knew about dispatchers?
We're hearing it from the driver and we're hearing it from the customer. So, you know.
Are you ever in a position where you got to choose?
Where you have to choose between the customer and the driver?
Yeah, like who would you service faster or like?
No, well, your driver. Your driver's driving for you. You need to be
on their side.
Their side, yeah. But if you know the driver's like, you know, you push the driver like, hey man, come on. The customer, you know, you do gotta let them know like, hey, we're running into delays. You know, a veces you gotta fake it till you make it. You know, but at the end of the day, your driver's driving for you, so they get the upper hand, I feel.
And in freight forwarding, what do they complain about?
Oh, jeez. In freight forwarding, I would just complain about the misinformation, shipping instructions that are just inaccurate. You know, they tell you, like you said, a certain weight, and then let's say that freight comes to one of our warehouses, and the warehouse guy's like, nah, a completely different weight. And it's like, crap, now I have to resubmit the documentation all over again. Sorry.
You're good.
So yeah, just making sure that all the information is accurate. I mean, down to like the commas in your shipping instructions, everything has to be accurate.
Or you're caught in the middle fixing it.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
As far as dispatchers, how much are they making these days? Are there levels to it, or is that like?
There is levels, because I mean, you can have a dispatcher say, hey man, I've been dispatching 6 years. And then they come in and they don't have the 6 years experience to show for it. I feel like you have to know what was their last position, how far has it been since they last dispatched,
Since they got fired,
what type of moves were they doing? Because you could have, like I said, drop and picks, which is super easy, preferable. Or you can have like, hey, I have a customer going to, you know, Fontana, have a customer in Moreno Valley. Do you prefer long distance loads? Or do you prefer local, like Torrance, Carson? It's all this has to be like, do you know how to move around the loads? Or where am I picking up my load? Where am I picking up the empty? You kind of have to know all these moves and how to coordinate it, so where the driver's not losing time, you're not wasting time, and everyone, you know, is satisfied with your work and what you're bringing to the table. As far as making, I would say entry-level dispatchers. Well, actually, I am acquainted with a dispatcher that was pretty entry-level last year, and he picked up on it quick. Easy now. He doesn't have the years of experience to show for it, but right now he's valued, I would say. Give the guy a good 80K a year, because he's that good. And it just depends how you go about it, how you like it. If you're just going to be a dispatcher like, oh yeah, I'm gonna send you here, get the load out of FMS, and then bring it back to the yard, and I'll see. And then you dispatch another driver with the same load. Oh, porque no me fijé. Oh, my bad. Now you just cost that other driver time, and if they're an owner op, worse their day.
Yeah.
So
they should have had the Port Pro.
Exactly, Port Pro.
Yeah. So what are some of the roles of a good dispatcher, a dispatcher?
A dispatcher. I mean,
what's that day like?
There is some type of, I would say, customer service involved in it, but a day in a dispatcher's life, let's say, I like to not pre-assign, but like pre-plan. I love to do pre-planning, make sure that everything's good for the following day, get in, dispatch my drivers for their loads, set the empties already with those loads, get a list of the empties. But let's say some empties became available overnight, and then set the first batch of containers already with their empties. And then your second batch, any new empties that come, try to assign them, and then get those dispatched for the end of the day. If you're dealing with the ports, I'd say...
Yeah, I was going to say that the port is like a dual transaction. You thought you had a dual transaction.
You thought you had a dual PCT. I know PCT, they ask you to schedule it a day in advance, but then the day of, they're not accepting it. They close that. So you're there looking with the new set of empties. Hey, ¿cuál le puedo acomodar? ¿Cómo los puedo acomodar? So that they're good, They're not messing up. I know there's systems out there like Blue Cargo that make it a little bit easier. You just type it in, what's going where, and then kind of you can assign, loads and empties to go with those loads. And it just makes it a lot easier than you having to go terminal by terminal to see what they're actually accepting.
What else?
So, I mean, that's pretty much your day. And then troubleshooting the drivers. Like if they get stuck, if they run into any issues, waiting time, making sure you send the emails to the terminal, making sure you advise the customer, any accessorial fees, let's say they had to do a chassis split, making sure you get that billed back to the customer. Yeah, and just make sure you charge the waiting time, because your driver's sure as heck going to charge it to you.
Do you guys are friendly with...
Sorry.
You're good. Friendly with street turns? Some people don't like to do street turns.
For me, they're kind of difficult, because now I know CMA is doing them different. You have to go through like an app, and O&E too. I prefer not to do a street turn, but they are convenient if you're doing a lot of exports. So
a lot could go wrong, right? Like if they don't transfer the SCAT code, or is that a thing? Like you have to assign it to someone?
Not the... Wouldn't it be the booking if they don't transfer it to the right booking?
Well, I had one story. Like there was this guy that I met at the terminal, and we chopped it up, and then he said, "Hey, yeah, cool. Anytime you have we were in the line, So he's like, he's in line to enter this terminal so he can get an empty out, and I have the freaking empty he needs. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So it's like, you know what? Like I do this a lot, so whenever you have this type of empties, just text me and then just drop it at our yard. And we'll street turn it.
And you have to get proof of that street turn.
But I wouldn't. I would just, okay, ya le dejé una ahí, primo. And dropped it. And I send them a picture of which one it was. And like that. And turns out that his dispatcher wasn't street turning them until the day that they were going in.
So they were still charging your customer the per diem.
Yeah, that for like, we found out because the guy that I would do the loads for, he complained, like, where's this,
Yeah.
So now I'm like, nah, I can't do that no more. So now I got to go marinate to burn an empty again. But that was good while it lasted.
Well, it's good. It could have kept working for you if you had proof of the street turn. You could have, hey, I dropped this empty, I need the street turn, and just... You have to stay on top of these type of things to avoid any issues with your customer, to make sure that's the purpose of the street turn, so that you don't have to sit there and wait.
Mutual.
Yeah. So, te está conveniendo a ti, le está conveniendo a él.
Yeah, but I thought that was shady, because they're not, they're not receiving your load now. Now you're going to decide to street turn it when they're ready to receive it. Like, why should we keep picking up the bill? at that point.
Exactly. So that's if you have somebody or a buddy that already needs it, that's where it's convenient. Porque luego se hace el trámite and, you get it off your hands, they get it empty,
What about a street turn with own chassis? How do you bill that?
Well, you have to make sure you get your chassis back. You have to bill for the chassis usage, right? They would, if they would to lease a chassis from or allocate it from the terminal, they're being charged every day. So you have to charge it back as well. Especially with the chassis issues going on right now that you can hardly find one anywhere. I would say bill for the chassis usage.
Do you know what that's going for these days? The daily chassis
usage fee, I would say not singular. Ya sé cuando está todo acumulado. Like you used it for X amount of days, so you have a bill of like 700. But I mean, each company, depending on their lease, what they're charging you by day. Some companies are being charged like, let's say a random number, $30 a day, so you have to bill it for 55, or make sure you make enough to cover that lease and a little bit more, for having it and for somebody else using it.
Yeah, because having equipment is a luxury nowadays. Like, that's what's literally stopping people from moving containers.
No, and then you have to get the bit inspections on the chassis. So every 3 months, te cobran. I know I have a guy that does it for like what, $150 a chassis.
To do what?
The chassis bit inspection, and then aside the repairs.
$150 for a BIT inspection?
Yeah.
And what about the federal? Does he throw the federal, and how much is the federal?
I'm not sure about the federal, but I know that repairs came after the $150, and then I also had another company that was doing it for $200, $250, and then repairs after.
Okay, you gotta shop around. So there's okay. Do you have any crazy stories about ports, office, life?
Ports, office, life. I mean, my whole life is a crazy story. But I'd say office-wise, I mean, I don't know. Dealing with the ports, I don't want to say names, but there's a certain port where there's the same night shift person, and he's always denying your exemptions.
What is that? When they get exemption, what are you asking for an exemption?
Like, if we can allocate the container without the appointment.
Okay.
So, like, let's say the driver's been in line for hours, right? And by the time he gets in, he's like, hey, man, I'm like 10 trucks away from the pedestal. Otra hora me voy a aventar aquí. Another 2 hours, But they're already at the end of their window. So you call the terminal like, hey, can you get this container exempt? Like, can I get an exemption? Or you send an email. And just they'll refuse it. They'll be either, sometimes they're good and they'll be like, sure, have the driver, come in without the appointment. They'll give you a code a lot of the times to provide at the window, and they'll exempt it without you requiring to make a new appointment, because appointments are so scarce nowadays. So that's an exemption.
Well, that's messed up, because if they know that they caused that delay, or they're already there, like, you're just not opening the doors. It's like, like.
And then right now with Trade Pack not doing any exemptions, that kind of, what do I say? ¿Qué le digo? Like, hey, my driver's been waiting there. Can you let him in? And they'll be like, sure, but they necessarily can't say it's exempted. They'll just be like, just have the driver keep on waiting and, come in and say his appointment time.
Yeah, because granting the exemption is like taking accountability for that you caused the delay.
Exactly. And now with these new laws that they're saying, oh no, it's not the ports, it's the lack of drivers. So it's like, it's not me, it's you.
How about you start accepting the equipment and, and we'll go from there, right? Wow. How do you prove that though? Like, imagine that's just like back and forth, right?
Oh yeah. It's about, like, a lot of the times, some drivers have opted to like providing pictures. Like, hey, I'm here at this time, but it just depends on the terminal. It depends on the clerk. It depends on if they're going to be willing to do it. If not, I mean, you take a chance, just like you take a chance on everything.
Why do you think it's like that? It should be like a standard like procedure, not up to the discretion of how a person feels that night. Because it sounds like that person takes it personal and enjoys doing it. You said he never gives you a chance. So
Exactly.
while others do, so it should either be
Standardized thing, right?
yes.
Like I heard some of my owner ops tell me, damn, back in the day, you would just return an empty, drop it, and you get your load out like nothing. It was, pretty quick. It was good to work for the port. It was easy to work for the port.
Why did it get so confusing? Do you know anything about that? When they started doing the vessel sharing and all the steamship lines, there was like,
I guess.
you see Evergreen containers at another terminal that's not called Evergreen. A little bit of...
Yeah.
You
like
know...
Everport, they all go to Everport, but now I guess it has to do with like the contracts that each steamship line, because as you can see, now there's new steamship lines, and now they have to see where their equipment is going to be accepted, where they're going to be able to turn around the equipment. So I guess it depends on the contracts that the steamship lines make with the terminals.
What's up with that? Like, they're making more steamship lines. They should also make
A room, right?
Yeah, and equipment to compensate for that, right?
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that? What it takes to start a steamship line? That sounds interesting, right?
It sounds interesting. I mean, I would like to know. I guess you just have to have a vessel, like with anything. Like
so?
Starting a drayage company, you have to have trucks, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a vessel and you can transport X amount of containers, why not?
I don't think any of these new steamship lines have a vessel, though. Have you? You know what I mean? Like they probably just fill in the gaps. No, like I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know. You would have to look into it.
That's a whole other topic.
Yeah, that is.
Any other crazy stories from one of your drivers, maybe at the port?
I mean, maybe not at the port. I think the most memorable story I have of a driver is that they quit on me. Not on me, but the company I was working for, because...
Last minute? Like, boom.
Yeah, because it was my first time dispatching. And I remember I dispatched him a load, like around 11. It was like 10 or 11. The load was at 10:30. He got out quick. He got out like at 12. Y a las 12 ya venía de regreso a la yard. And he told me, it's like, hey, I'm going to take my lunch, like... Ain't nobody cook for me, so I'm gonna go ahead and take my lunch. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Just don't forget you have a load at 1. And yo no lo dije de mala forma, no lo dije like to pressure him, just like, oh, keep that in mind,
What time was it when he told you that?
It was like 12.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, just keep in mind, it's such a short gap that I'm just like, be mindful. But he was like, oh, heck no. He went to my manager. He went all crazy. How's she gonna tell me I can't take my lunch? Man, I quit. Like, I'm out. And I was like, I didn't mean it like that.
He wouldn't have lasted anyways. It sounds like, yeah. That's not how it works. And, well, not that I want it to stay like that, but it seems we gotta adapt daily. Like, you could plan your day beautifully, but the port will tell you otherwise.
Exactly. So I was just like, man, I didn't mean to offend anybody, and I think another crazy story was when females were actually just starting in the industry. You would start to see more female drivers. I worked for a company that just refused to acknowledge truckers, or drivers as like drivers. They would be like, ugh, drivers. And I'm like, chill out. Damn. Like, they're people, just like us. And
so a company in trucking that didn't like the drivers?
Well, they did logistics in general.
Oh, okay.
But they just like, oh no, they had like one porta potty for the drivers. Yeah. And more females were coming into the industry. Yeah. So I remember one time a lady driver, she was like, hey, can I use your restroom, like inside the warehouse? And I was like, yeah, sure, come on in. And shortly after, we had a meeting, and they're like, don't be letting the drivers use our restrooms, They even added like a lock with a pin and everything. And I was like, dang, that's scandalous. Like, what if I wanted to become a driver? Yeah. Like, is this where I'm going to be treated at? Like, everywhere? Like, not a decent place to... Because I could go to the porta potties, but, where it's mostly males and... how as a woman do
There's a lot of gangbanging, like graffiti on those
porta potties?
Yeah, people have a lot of beef right there. I don't know. Ahí se están aventando sus pedradas.
Like, dang, can nobody take a shit
Yeah.
in peace anymore?
I think if they traded, to stay down to earth, you guys should have done a little exercise where like once a week, you guys trade spots. The drivers use your restroom and you guys use the porta potty that you put for the drivers.
Right? Like, but nah, they didn't see it like
Yeah.
that. I think one of the drivers actually would like come in and be like, "Oh, you guys they're slaves." That's how they see you guys. You guys are they're workers, but you're their slaves.
All this porta potty talk got me thinking about I should take a break. We're gonna do a quick little restroom break. We'll be right back. And we're back. If you could change one thing in drayage, what would it be?
Not to be rude to anyone, but like I want to get some insight of why the ports manage the way that they do. It because it could be so easy to like, bring in a container, get yours out, make it like I mentioned previously, one of my drivers that said, you take an empty, drop it, pick up your container and get out of there. What is causing so many delays? What is it? Is it that the containers are not in the right spot? Is it the container checks? Is it, the appointments? What is it that's exactly? I want to like pinpoint why there's so many delays. Why it can't just be like, let me drop my empty and get my container and get out of there. I don't know. I think that's probably something like my next project, like maybe try to go into the port and learn it.
How would you do that? Like go into the port, how? Like with your concessions, like a company, or like? No.
Work for the port and try to.
You think you could get in there if you're not a union member?
I don't know. I doubt it. But now I heard they're doing the lotteries. Okay. So maybe try to throw my name in there. What is it, like $1,000, $9,000 to get your name in there?
Oh, then that's not the lottery then. I thought it was
like become a clerk at the port.
But I thought that's like they give notice and they gotta publish it in the newspaper or something, and then you send in something.
Like your
that's
resume?
Different. So you're saying lottery, like if there's a fee, like you might get picked, but you might not.
Right.
$1,000.
So it's like any job. You like send in your resume. If you get chosen, you get chosen. If not, then you don't.
Yeah, but you said lottery, like, or raffle.
No, like a lottery. Like
so you gotta invest in it.
Yeah.
For the possibility.
For the possibility.
The legit way, or is that like under the table? Like,
I don't know. I've heard about it.
Okay, that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
To know if it's a lottery, like, okay. I thought it was you send the postcard and then they do like a little like bingo style and it comes out,
I just released information that I wasn't supposed to.
Tell me more.
I plead the fifth.
I think they were doing it to where like it had to be available to the general public, and that's what the
lottery is for.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was a lot of family members getting in family members. That was, I mean, I don't know what it is for clerk. I know that's how it is for like longshoremen.
Yeah.
But I would want to experience being a clerk at the terminal.
Well, there's different locals, I think. The clerks are, I think, 63 or 26. I don't know. But there's different locals, like, to categorize for different. Well, I think 26 is for the securities. And the 13 is on the dock, so like the longshoremen, like
I would want to just be a clerk, like get the emails of like the dispatchers requesting exemptions and like.
Oh, okay. What do you think that job is called then?
Clerks.
Do you call them clerks? Okay.
Admin at the terminal. I mean, I probably even if start minimum wage, just to kind of like get a feel like what it's like, what management is like in there. Why are there so many delays? I don't know. It's just intriguing.
I'm gonna take a note of that. You think
I want to get to the bottom of this.
Maybe you should ask another clerk. How do you get in? Maybe I should invite a clerk on here.
You should.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a couple. I don't personally know them, but there's a couple like that have been at the terminals like for a while. So
you could tell like you build a relationship through the messaging, you think?
Sometimes, yeah.
Per my last email.
Yeah, you can't be snobby like that.
No,
though. You
okay.
gotta be like, man, yeah, I understand. You know, they're because they're getting thousands and thousands of emails. Like, I know when I get thousands and thousands of emails, I'm like, shit, am I gonna be able to go through these in one day?
Yeah.
In one sitting, with also doing,
Yeah.
you know, my other duties. So I can only imagine. And like I said, because I can only imagine, I would like to sit in their shoes to kind of be like, all right, you know.
I think I would scream at the drivers too. Nah. Yeah, because from Kevin from one of the episodes, 33, I believe, he said he got schooled on that, like, because he would email in all caps. And just like, no, you can't be emailing like this because we think you're screaming at us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like proper email etiquette. Like just recently, I was at my previous position. One of the biggest complaints that my boss was getting from other personnel was like, Jamie's not sending the right emails, or not even the right emails. She just, the way she sends her email was such a big like deal. And I was like,
unprofessional.
Yeah, very
like a text.
No, like I would use like the proper etiquette, like hello, so and so team, please note that your container wasn't pulled due to, you know, no chassis at the terminal, and that's it. Like, I was just very direct with my emails. And they're like, hey, what causes, you know, why was there no chassis? And I would be like, because the terminals had no chassis to accommodate your load. Mm-hmm. Like, there's nothing we can do. Please note that there's going to be a dry run fee. And they would get all upset because, and I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do to sugarcoat it, you know? Like,
at the end, you got to put regards.
No, and I would put kind regards or warm regards.
What?
Not best regards. I
yeah.
feel like best regards is like, whatever. Like, I would put kindest regards or sincerely.
Well, why do we gotta add that? What? I mean, it's not a. I mean, I don't know.
It's just like proper etiquette, I guess. Like, I think one of the coolest ones that I saw, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna keep using this, was I think a lady messed up and she said, respectfully, and then her signature, or like respectfully.
Like, so the ending like, should be in context to what's in it. Like if it's in regarding an apology because you screwed up, you end it that way, right?
Exactly. And that just, I feel like, puts you like, oh shoot, you know. That was her closing.
What about CC? What is that all about? I feel like when they do that, they kind of like tag someone along so the other person could be like, oh shit, they're watching, I better respond. Or what is that for?
Like a lot of people in like companies, they'll like send you an email. Like if it's something you can fix and they're like, nah, I trust that Luis will read my email and get it done. Like, hey Luis, please update, you know, the schedule for tomorrow. Or if they just, I feel like a lot of people take it the wrong way where they're like, they'll send it to you, but they'll CC the owner. Like, let me say like, hey Luis, kind reminder of my appointment tomorrow at 10 a.m. Let me go ahead and add Port Pro in there so they can know. I mean, they don't really care, but like, let me go ahead and add them. Like, just
so CC and email world, it's like tagging someone.
Yeah, it's like tagging, so they have that visibility.
Oh, okay.
But be careful with your BCCs.
What is BCC?
It's the blind copy, where you like you're sending someone an email to back yourself up, but you BCC like someone in higher power or whatever.
But it won't show in the...
No. So like I've had occasions where somebody sends me an email and they'll BCC like someone who's my supervisor, let's say.
How did you know?
And I'll be like, well, because then my supervisor will respond and say like, hey, do whatever, you know? And I'll be like, damn.
Oh, like where did he come from?
Yeah.
Oh.
So then you know, like, she BCC'd them.
Well, it's simple then. Just treat every email like if someone's
reading it. Yeah, of course. And I feel like a lot of people tend to forget that. Yeah. Like, even always be, know that
in anything
IT has access. Yeah. In anything.
They said this write anything you write, do it like if a judge can read it someday.
Yeah.
So don't incriminate yourself like that. What if someone is CC'd and you didn't realize it, and then there's like shit talking or gossip, and then that would be awkward, right?
Yeah, that would be super. That's why you don't ever like gossip through an email.
I guess I just wanted to know, generally speaking, what is it for? CC'd, like.
Yeah, it's to copy. Yeah, to tag somebody in your email.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that steered away from what would you change, right? Well, I guess we got into the clerical and.
Well, the waiting times.
In one word, then let's put it in one word. You would change for better communication or better.
Just communication. I would want to get to the bottom of the operation and why are the drivers spending so much waiting time at the terminals? Why is there a shortage of drivers, but yet, you don't add appointments to accommodate or whatever?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's no shortage. I think there's a retention problem. Exactly. People leave as soon as quickly as they come in.
Not even that,
like,
but
what's wrong,
Even like for their breaks.
Yeah.
It's like they leave 10 minutes or whatever amount of time before, and they come back whatever amount of time after, shortening the amount of time that they actually have to. Mm-hmm. And, they're operating big machinery, so understand there's going to obviously be waiting time.
Yeah. That's something they mention a lot when people come on here about they're like, I don't really care if they take a lunch or not. That's not like my, because then they take it wrong. Like if we're hating on them because they get to take a lunch and we don't. The problem is not that. The problem is that the backlogs, that what it causes, So whoever's in charge, they've suggested, why don't they do like the staggering, so that the operation can continue working,
Why don't they have shifts to cover those or people to cover them?
Yeah, we're not asking for them to stop taking a lunch. We all got to eat. But So you said spending time, and then that can lead us into spending as far as on the merge bills. How fun. What's the biggest bill you've seen in the merge or heard of?
I would have to say like $17K. Mm-hmm. I mean, 17 could have been more, 22, 42K. Because there's whatever type of communication. No, actually, it probably had to be like 57K. And it was, in this particular instance, the terminal needed the demurrage payment to be cleared. TTI. It was TTI. Mm-hmm. But because it was such a big amount of demurrage, they couldn't process the payment.
Oh,
like
what?
They had to be split in two, or like the customer, I remember being CC'd in the emails, and the customer was like, I can cover the charge, there's no issue, just we need it for this appointment time. And they're like, oh yeah, but there's a process that we have to do because we can't take that amount of payment. It's such a big amount that they couldn't process it, so they actually had to go directly with the accounting of TTI to be able to like clear that demurrage.
Meanwhile, what happens with that operation though? Like, that's not your fault. You're willing to pay it, so can we still take it? Can we still get that can out?
Let's say it stayed there, it was still accruing more, and that's what the customer was arguing with the terminal. Like, hey, I'm more than willing to pay it. I'm more than willing to cover it now. But they're like, nah, it's such a big payment. Like, they were internally having an issue receiving the payment. Mm-hmm. So that's what altered the operation. And I mean, I was just sitting there as the dispatcher, like,
that sounds hectic.
Am I going to be able to, can I schedule it? Is it even going to be able to get cleared?
You can't get this can because you owe this money. Okay, let me pay the money. Oh, we can't take the money right now, but we're going to keep billing you. So, fuck.
Exactly. I mean, that's terminals for you.
What are ways that you can fuck up and end up with the merge?
Well, one way, completely missing the order. Like, let's say you skipped over that email. The DO, the delivery order. It's a legal document for those that don't know. So completely missing that email. Let's say missing the last free day. I know sometimes PRA, PCT have a last free day, but the container is not available. So once it becomes available, instead of you requesting the LFD, they'll like extend it for you.
But this is stuff you still have to do yourself. They don't come and say,
we'll extend it out of the kindness of our heart. Like you have to keep up with it. You have to monitor it, because if you miss it, and let's say it wasn't available and you didn't send the email to the terminal, then once it becomes available and it's past the last free day and you accrued already like $200 of demurrage, you have to have that email backup. Otherwise, to be able for them to admit that the container wasn't available, it's a 50-50 chance. And at the end of the day, you're losing money. So you don't want to lose that money, you know, because sometimes the customer will be like, I provided you the deal in more than enough time. You should have got it out. You missed it. That's on you. Cover it, you know?
They don't know the situation, though, sometimes.
Exactly.
Do you recommend a lot of screenshots? That's what I hear of, like screenshots.
Yes, you have to have screenshots.
How would one file screenshots? Like,
Oh, you don't file them. You just, I know right now I use the snip. It's called snip.
Yeah.
And you like screenshot just what you want. Like, let's say the container, unavailable, last free day. You screenshot it, send it, attach it to your email, and you just delete the screenshot because it's already attached to that email. It stays on that email.
So that screenshot would be of that day of you requesting it, or like anything that you want to get proof for that?
Exactly. Anything that you want to get proof of. It could be, you could be screenshotting an email and just the portion that you want.
Yeah.
And then just sending that over.
And that's like a industry standard that they honor, or is that like no screenshots accepted? Can that be a scenario that they use eventually? Like,
no, but they could deny, like, for
regardless.
Yeah, they could still say, well, we're not going to cover it. Please proceed to pay, and your load will be provided to you.
That sounds really frustrating, because you always have to fight for it, even if it's something that you're in the right.
Exactly.
What percentage of carriers do you think fight back and try to, you know, stand their ground versus the ones that give in and be like, you know what, fuck it, it's not worth it. I'm making enough anyways.
Exactly. So I would say like maybe the more settled companies that are already have like really good accounts with X amount of drivers, that a $200 loss is not really like a loss.
Yeah.
As opposed to like smaller companies that are just being brought up, that are counting their pennies, you know, because everything counts, especially like for the per diem or whatnot. Everything counts.
Am I wrong, or I noticed that Friday for some reason a lot of things are last free day? Like, how does that work? Like
by the vessels and how they're unloaded.
So they all happen to. What if they're purposely unloaded a certain day to ensure that the last free day will be Friday? Like, Fridays are hectic from what I remember. Like ITS, like is one that's been crazy these last 2 Fridays. Like the lines all the way to Anaheim and shit.
And
outside,
you notice that sometimes ITS is like the loneliest terminal. Like there's days and there's times that ITS could be packed, like you said, with lines all the way to the freeway, and Tray Pack is completely empty. Like, just the scenario. And then there's days where Tray Pack is just, you know, line is super backed up over the bridge, and wait, did I say ITS again? Let's say Tray Pack is super loaded, and then ITS is completely empty.
Yeah. But it's like they all choose, and that's another thing about the vessel sharing that complicates shit, I think, because then last minute everyone gets sent for the empties. The vessel's over here this time, so everyone gets sent at the same time over there, and that's what I noticed, like a surge of empties all at once, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and meanwhile, you guys stored them at your yard for free until they were ready to be delivered, like. Cause
that's another topic as well.
And like, you're paying for that storage on top of it and getting billed. That's crazy.
The steamship line. And this all has to do with the steamship lines, because, you know, it's their equipment at the end of the day. You're storing it. Like you said, you mentioned in previous episodes, you're not getting paid for that. You can't even bill the steamship lines. Oh, but they'll go ahead. They feel more than, you know, with the right to bill you for the storage, for storing their equipment. Like, how does that work?
At least they could match it and be like, you know what, we'll call it even.
Because
that would sound fair.
Even with the per diem,
Yeah.
you find yourself disputing and sending email backup like, hey, no terminal was accepting it. There were no available appointments. You're sending the screenshot. And like, this is what I told one of my dispatchers, like, you send it every day. Like, he was my night dispatcher. And I would tell him, like, regardless, you send that email, you send those screenshots. And at first he was like just sending the blue cargo, like, oh, nobody's accepting it. But let's say one terminal was accepting, LBCT was. But when you go on the LBCT website, there's no appointment slots for that steamship line. So I'm like, you have to get both screenshots. You can't just do one because ahí te la van a pelear. Like, no, LBCT had availability. Why didn't you turn it into LBCT? Now you need the screenshot from LBCT saying no appointment slots available for that day, for that time frame. Because now you're in two.
Just do all the freaking terminals de una vez, you know?
Yeah, but it sucks for him because he's like, yeah, but that's time consuming, you know? That's one job in and of itself.
Yeah. And that's per container or it's just the line, right?
Per steamship line, because I would have them.
So like high cubes, 40 high cube.
Yes. I would have them sorted by steamship lines in our system and then go from there.
That's better than one at a time. Like, where does OOLU 1, 2, 3 go? Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. That'll help you filter them out, isolate them, and know what its priority, right? Wow, I don't know. That's basically what they're in the business of. If you think about it, like, what other service do they provide? The terminals, like.
Yeah, just appointments and.
It's just an exchange location, you know.
Because there's also container yards that are not necessarily terminals that you can turn in your empties to. Like, I know in, like, other areas, like I mentioned previously, like Kansas, you know, they have their own container yards. And sometimes over there, it's very difficult to get an empty as opposed to the ports that are always moving their containers around.
What do you know about, like, the off-site, or what do they call them? Like, for example, there's a new pier they made. Like, you can see it coming down the new bridge on the right.
Pier S?
Yeah, that's like an empty yard, or what is that? Because I never got to go there.
No. You're pretty new to it. So that's more, I thought it was a terminal. I thought there was access, like, for the vessels to go to that.
Oh, I don't know. I thought it was like a storage for, like, the overflow of the empties or something.
I know they have a lot of hop hogs.
Yeah.
Hop hags.
Yeah.
Right there. But I don't think it's it is the container yard, but I don't think it's necessarily just the container yard because sometimes you do have imports going to.
So it's not like a new terminal, like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, it is a new terminal. Yeah, that's how I'm seeing it, like a new terminal, because it's Pier S. It's a pier.
Pier S. Well, we gotta look into that one. So I know there's longshoremen in there already. So
yeah. So it is a terminal. It's not like, let's say, what's a good container yard outside of the port?
A shipper's transport, where everything's on wheels.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Con Global. It's a container yard.
I thought it was that type of yard.
Yeah, no, because tiene pier. It's Pier S.
Interesting. We'll keep an eye out. So, if it's so bad, like, we all know it's bad, like, how come nobody does anything? Like,
well, that's what
we're
saying.
aware that it's bad. Okay, what's next?
So that's what I'm saying. That's why I want to start my mission to work inside the terminal to get to the bottom of this, to see the operation, to see what exactly is it that's, like, it could be that they just don't want to hire relieves. Like, all right, just let me hire this person to relieve this shift, like, while they go to lunch, you know, or have them start at different times. So there can be reliefs, you know. Share the wealth. You guys are making millions.
Because this shit's getting old, man. I want to keep it real. I'm not gonna keep doing this if I don't feel it's, how do I say it? Like, it's like being in an abusive relationship and you're both saying it's bad.
Los tóxicos.
It's bad. It's bad. Like, it's bad. Like, okay, what's next? Like, no one's making an effort to fix it. Like. Right. So we're gonna do 1,000 episodes. It's gonna be Containeroz. Like, all we're gonna do is complain on here. Like, what?
How are we gonna get to the bottom of it? How are we gonna?
we're in this phase, I think, right now where we're getting information from each other, and maybe like that'll throw off a light bulb, like, oh shit,
It's not me.
like
it's
this
the
is
terminals.
the.
I'm kidding.
But yeah, every now and then I have to rant because I see the cycle, because I'm the one sitting here like asking you guys, and it's always like
The same answers.
everyone's aware, but like, okay, what's next?
What do we do next? I mean, that's my goal, to hopefully get in there and see the operation and see what's causing so many delays. Can we get a word in there like, hey, can I make a suggestion,
With kind regards.
with kind regards, and hopefully they take it into consideration. I mean, who do we have to contact to see why we're not getting these relieves, or people that relieve the terminal workers, when the crane operators, when they go to lunch,
Yeah.
I mean, no te van a quitar el crane, ahí va a estar.
Yeah, it needs to be like something that is solid and that people respect, and everyone follows that, like a common law, like I don't know, that's the proper way to say it, like something that is known, like we all know we need to stop at a stop sign, like shit like that, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we need like something permanent, like figure it out, let's all follow that game plan, because all these temporary tantrums, it seems like, and I fucking hate it. Like we had these movements and whatnot, and when it comes down to the nitty gritty, no one's fucking down. Like they're down only when it affects them directly. The Canadian stuff, like what happened, it died out. I don't know anything about it anymore. I haven't heard about it in the news or nothing. And April 1st they were gonna stop. Like what happened? I would like to get an update of how things are going for those that stopped. Like,
did it make a difference?
We've done slow rolls, like for what? Like what's going on? Like if we could get something where this is the way it is and honor this.
Like I remember last year you were working on, I think it was around Thanksgiving time, owner operators were gonna operate, because maybe this way the terminals will like
be thankful.
Not be thankful, but like I forgot what was the issue. And that was, everyone in protest was gonna call off the day for Black Friday, and I didn't even follow up with you guys to see if you guys actually called off, Black Friday.
Man, like I said, there's a lot of attempts, and then you know what I mean. We had one boo for APL. We were all gonna not show up on Halloween, like make it like a Halloween theme, like boo, And then they fucking closed that day. Like, what the fuck?
They knew. They were on to you guys.
That was interesting. So
you can't not come if I'm not open.
Yeah, how about that? You can't fire me because I quit, Like,
yeah. How you gonna get fired on your day off?
Man, we're human, man. This shit wears out over time. We would like to think that we're superhuman, but at the end of the day, we gotta face reality. And when you don't feel like you're being heard, it's like, what good is like just speaking on it if nothing's being done? So I guess I'm just keeping it real with you and the audience. Like this shit gets old.
If anyone knows of like any management at the terminals, or just like I want to hear them out. Like why are they doing these things, and what is their end goal? Because of all these new like laws, like, oh, there's a supply chain, there's an issue, there's a driver shortage. Clearly that's not the case. Now you have all these container yards opened around the terminals. PCH and Santa Fe, it's the busiest I've ever seen it. Growing up, these were just industrial areas that were empty.
Yeah,
that was a good place to go learn how to drive a car because of how empty it was.
Yeah.
Now they're just like trucks everywhere.
What about your current job right now? What's your favorite thing about that at the moment?
Well, my favorite thing is that it's just starting off. So, like any new toy, we're like playing with it.
Okay.
And just like.
So this is the brokerage part.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because I rudely interrupted you and that because of the way I asked the question earlier. You brought that up.
So
yeah.
I don't know. I did
box it in. Like we got to get back to brokering. So that's your current gig then. You're going for that, the brokerage side of things.
Yeah. So right now we're getting acquainted with more carriers, more, preferably carriers that go out of state, that do long hauls. If you guys know of anybody, hit me up, my Instagram. That's what we want to get started with. And then, if anyone needs any freight being moved, we have a couple drivers that will help us out. And that's kind of what we're working on right now. I'm going through like the safety audit and stuff like that. So it's intriguing. I like it. It's something, a different side of the trucking industry, not necessarily working directly with the drivers. Of course, we are going to work directly with a couple owner ops that don't have, that aren't associated or a part of this big, company, more established company. If they're just owner operators, then yeah, of course, And like I said, we always have the driver's best interest at hand.
With that type of operation, what's more convenient for you or someone that's starting? Something where the distance is long or short? Because if it's long, I would think that because if you're new in this, it gives you time to like figure it out when they get back.
Yeah.
Versus local, like drop and hook, and it's like, oh shit, I'm not keeping up with where everything's at,
Yeah. Well, that's why like I said, I like to pre-plan. Be sure that the driver has something going and coming back. So they're not just going just to go. So that's something we would like to coordinate. If there's anything out of state that's coming back into the state, let us know. So that would be, we're still working out the operation side of things. It's fresh. It's like just starting. Like I just got the authority a couple days ago. So
So what's the difference? You feel like that's just the more less liability way, less headache way than running a trucking company? Like you're just gonna, and what is the chances of like triple, quadruple brokering by the time you get it?
So that's what I'm thinking. That's one of my biggest fears right now, triple, quadruple brokering, because I can easily get freight through another broker. But it's like, ¿cuánto me va a quedar a mí? Without it affecting what the driver's making. So, también liability-wise, the trucks won't be necessarily ours, but, we'd be associated with a lot of owner-operators, and we'd be flexible with what we can count on, who we can count on. Offering them a load. It's going to be more of a headache finding the carrier that's willing to move the freight than it is getting the freight. So, everything comes with ups and downs, I guess.
Because there's a lot of own authority coming into the picture. So at this point, what's the difference with your brokerage and a company that just
brokers out?
That still gives them work, like if they were leased on, which is unfortunate. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So at this point.
So. I don't know the difference. All I can say is that... you got me thinking.
No, because it's a new approach that even like some of the carriers that have been doing it for a while, they're opening brokerages as well. So I don't know if they're preparing in advance for if AB5 goes in 100%.
Right.
And they're going to operate that way instead of like... Because you're not going to get audited. You don't have to have a truck. Like to have a active... authority, right, for like to be a carrier, you need to have at least one truck registered to that MC.
Right.
And with you didn't have to register a truck. Did you?
We still did.
Oh, you still did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so I was wrong. So even to be a broker, you have to register a truck?
Because we don't know where it's headed yet. We decided just to be on the safe side, go ahead and register a truck under the company, just because what if we do decide to move, straight under RMC or, DOT but that would be in the long run. Right now, we're just trying to ensure that we stabilize with as little liability as possible, and we're going the owner-operator route. So.
Okay. What do you consider like a real broker nowadays?
What do you mean a real broker? There's fake brokers?
Yeah, like I could say I was a fake broker in a way because someone gave me the work, and I just found other owner operators to do it. But I was not a broker. But I took like let's say it was a $300. I'll take $50 and give them $250.
Well, I think there's 3 terms for it, and I think that's double dispatching actually. And I think that's actually not the legal way to do it. Did you just confess to something, bro?
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Okay, allegedly. So, yeah, that's not what we wanted to do. It's the easiest thing to do because, I mean, hey, yeah, que tan mejor que if I could do it on the down low. But we wanted to make sure to go like the proper way. So we want to make sure, like, a lot of people tell me like, oh, you require a license. I'm still researching it, and I think your license is your authority and your DOT. That's your license. That's what it means to be a licensed broker. Yeah,
and bonded and all that stuff.
Yeah, you have to pay your bond, pay your insurance.
How much is it? Is it still like $75,000?
Yep.
Can you get it in payments and do like a monthly payment on it?
I'm not too sure if you can, but I know that we're just...
Yeah, because some people think you're going to pay it all up front, but it's actually an insurance that you pay monthly that covers up to that amount. That's what I thought, because that's like $75,000 that someone can... That's why you never want to upset on someone, another your customer, because anything goes sour, they're going to... What do they call it? Pull on that bond or something. They put a claim on that bond.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that's the way that it could affect you.
Because I know that bond was to cover in case, like you said, you broker it out to a carrier, and the carrier,
No, it's not for you. I think it's to protect them. So, like,
their freight, their cargo.
Oh, I don't have your $10,000 as promised. I know I told you I'll pay you in 30 days. It's like, okay, cool. I'll just pull it from the bond. And it's like submitting a claim.
Well, yeah, for the carrier, right? Like, si el cliente no quiere pagar.
No, if you didn't pay me as a broker, you owe me $10,000, but I know you got a bond valued at this amount, and I submit a claim.
So you could get your payment.
Yeah, you want to avoid that.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I always thought it was to cover, like, let's say, si el carrier se va con el freight. All right.
I don't know. That's one of the things, that's why we have these conversations, to, like, learn a little more. And if I'm wrong, correct me in the comments.
Right. Correct us, please.
Yeah. Who does it benefit more, the bond, the broker or the carrier? There we go. Well, I wish you the best in that.
Thank you. I'm learning as I'm going, obviously. So we are going to take some time to actually learn all the ins and outs, like the bond stuff, and we're working on it. It's, like I said, fairly new. So right now my next step is to go to get us insured, get the bond out of the way, learn more about the bond, and get that squared away. And then we have our safety audit.
Okay. But you gotta just take the steps, and then when that new chapter opens, then comes another little lesson, and little by little, and hopefully some people share some information. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like with everything.
Yeah. But I think the best way to learn sometimes is actually going through it.
Yeah, I'm more hands-on.
Yeah,
that way as well.
Yeah.
Like a lot of it is trial and error.
Yeah, me too. Like, because I've written down notes about stuff, like maybe like how to edit certain things. And I'll write like a whole fucking page, 2 pages. And then I caught myself. I'm like, I never literally went back and read the notes. Like, what am I writing them for? I'm more like, no, but I had to do it over and over. And that worked for me.
Before you actually got it?
Yeah, because writing the notes wasn't helping me. I was just writing. And it's like, I don't know if I'm going to have freaking dementia or something. Other broken windows got to me or something. But I forget shit. So if I write it down, like, it doesn't help like that. I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah, it didn't really help you until you did it repeatedly. Okay.
So, what else? See, it happened right now. I forgot.
What's your next question? What do you want to know?
Let's do that. Okay. Let's see. Do you have like a burning desire, like something that... I mean, you came on here and this is an opportunity to be heard, right? Like you can speak up on something. So what is that? Is there something you want to share? Like,
just, damn, I don't know, a burning desire to be heard. I'm not, I want to be heard just overall, but I feel like we're all in this together. We're all fighting the same battle. So overall, like, we just shouldn't shun each other down because of lack of knowledge. I mean, maybe the little knowledge that you do have will be helpful for someone who has more knowledge, you know?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Just don't put each other down. Like, we're all in the same industry. We're all in here to make some money, you know? And I feel like some people just get real greedy about it. And they, like you said, they withhold information just like, you know, oh, I don't know. I just, like, we all should just work together to, you know, get to the same, I guess, there is no literal finish line, but, you know, to just make our lives easier.
Make it flow.
Make it flow, exactly.
And right now, like what you shared earlier, like your opinions and whatnot, do you feel that they would be taken into consideration, or do you ever feel like your suggestions don't matter in any situation, like in the workplace, maybe in
because of my young age, because of how I started up, I feel like a lot of people disregard me because of, you know, my lack of experience.
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel like I've been through a lot of shit. Like, hear me out, you know? Maybe it won't help the situation right away, but I feel like I have some pretty good insight and pretty good wisdom talking down on me, so to guide me. So, I mean, I feel like I could share some of that wisdom as well.
Yeah. So you would be the type to share the journey with other women that want to follow in those steps if they're like, hey, I want to do a brokerage too? Like,
heck yeah. Like, you know, maybe just do like a guide. Like, let me guide you through it. Like, these are some of the challenges I face. So be prepared for this, you know, be prepared for that. And I feel like a lot in this industry, a lot of people confuse that, and they'll just like for instance, when I started in my previous management role, I had one person that I knew. They were like a close family relative, and then a close family friend. And when I thought like, oh, this person's gonna help me, like they're gonna, heck no, like they just pushed me down some more. And I was like, wow, I was not expecting that, especially from this person. But in a way, I was like, all right, they did meet me at a young age. I was like, you know, a little chiclosa, just like everywhere partying, you know, not really had a sense of direction of where I wanted to end up. So I guess my prior decisions probably made her feel that way about me, but I feel like work ethic is different than my personal life. You know, work is work, and anything outside is anything outside.
how do you feel about the mentality that most people have that, oh, because it was hard for me to get all this information and I struggled a lot to get here, that's why I don't share it with no one, because I want them to go through what I went through like I did. Like,
I mean, you could go that route. At the end of the day, I mean, you never know. People, that information's, you're not the only one to obtain it. Somebody else, if you don't let me know, I mean, somebody else might share it with me, or like you said, I'll work my butt off to obtain it as well. It's not that hard to know, you know? Like, if it's easier, like, why not help that person? And, you know, who knows, maybe down the line they'll shed some light on you and help you when you need it. Yeah.
At the moment, who inspires you?
Who inspires me? Let's see. I mean, just like a variety of people, I could say. It depends. Sometimes it's not very much like work-wise. It's just like what they bring to the table. Like maybe the little acts of kindness that they brought, you know, they gave me. Just it means a lot. It's the little things that count. You know, it's I can't pinpoint one person. I mean, I could say my dad, because he's worked his whole life and You know, he taught me a good work ethic. And then I could say, you know, Eddie, because of everything that he's been through and like him sharing his experiences with me. I look up to that. And then I could say...
Who's Eddie?
Eddie. He's a very close friend of mine.
He's over there.
He's my fiance. He's over there. That's what he is. No, I'm just kidding.
You guys are funny.
And then I could say Heidi because of, you know, she just keeps going and she's just this very smart individual that I have the honor to call, you know, a friend and my boss. And then I could say Brandon because he just slows me, you know. Yo soy bien aventada, soy, and then he just like, hey, bro, like he's very logical.
He just doesn't reply to text.
He just, oh, dang. You know, he hasn't replied to me since Friday either. So, I mean, I don't know.
Are you okay, Brandon?
Are you still alive?
Where is Brandon?
Where's Waldo? Where's Brandon?
We want to get rid of Brandon.
No.
Not that Brandon.
What Brandon? Oh, go Brandon.
Oh. Yeah.
Go
I
Brandon.
was like, this is getting awkward.
I
What
know.
Brandon? All right.
I'm like, what? That's my best friend right there.
That's my best friend. That's my best friend. So, childhood. You want to share anything on that?
I was a little crazy girl. Childhood. I mean, I don't know. I grew up mainly around boys. Just, you know, boy cousins. I'm the only girl. 2 brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had just a lot of male like family members.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's easy for me to relate or get along with boys more than girls.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I'm not like typical girly girl. I'm, you know, I just because of how I heard my cousins growing up.
Yeah.
I just know, like, I say some comments sometimes that people be like, that's not ladylike. And I'll be like, okay, my bad. I didn't know. But yeah, I was growing up, a lot of the people that I looked up to were my dad and my uncle. They were some really big, like, they inspired me to just do a lot or just go out of my way. They were hardworking men, so obviously I grew up thinking I had to work just as hard if I wanted to make it. My cousins that were male, like I said, they were owner-operators. So them speaking on the industry, it just intrigued me. But I think the hardship I faced being a freight forwarder and becoming a single mom, you know, I became a single mom when I was working in transloads, but when I wanted to keep learning in the industry, I was also transitioning to being a full-time single mom. I wasn't getting any help at the time. I'm not saying that I'm not getting help now, but at the time I was dealing with being a single mom all on my own and making minimum wage as a freight forwarder because freight forwarders do not get paid as much as they should.
That's what I thought at the beginning. Like, man, you must have been making bank because there's a lot of, you know, responsibilities.
I was making like $16 an hour. And dealing with all that stress. And then plus stress at home. Like, when am I going to feed the kids? Am I going to be able to make my rent? You know, all that good stuff. So that was stressful in and of itself, starting, you know, the child support process. So that was very difficult. And also dealing with some of my issues, because at the time, come Friday, Saturday, I was drinking all the time. Like, it was the party life. I was in my early, 20s. And I was like, yeah, like, party everywhere, you know?
But you kind of skipped. We started with childhood, and then along the way, you ended up with the whole single mom thing. Like,
yeah, childhood.
Do you feel you grow up too fast? Like, cause
I feel like I did because I met the father of my kids when I was 14.
Oh, okay.
So, and he hung out with like my cousins and stuff. So he was in the family, you know,
Okay.
mixteado.
Okay.
So because I feel like I grew up too fast. I had some pretty good childhood experiences, going out with the family. I have family in Salinas. My dad would take us like almost every summer. If we weren't going to Vegas, we were going to Salinas. Either or.
You grew up with both parents?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but I'm closer to my dad.
She's gonna be jealous.
Shout out to my mom. My mom too. She's very hardworking. Always night shifts, so we would hardly. That's why I don't have,
So you get what do you call it? You love them both the same, but you get more attached to who you ever spend the most time with. Then
time, yeah. That is always a thing, like the most. And I remember when I was dispatching like 24/7, I remember my dad told me, hey, you remember everything that you say about your mom not spending time with you guys, just paying for your stuff? Well,
it's
you're
your
doing
turn.
that. Yeah,
you're up. Now you understand because you're going through it.
Yeah, and I'm like, but low key, she had him. I didn't really have that luxury to have somebody else to fall back on. I mean, their father is there, but that's why I'm closer to my dad. He taught me all like the life experiences,
What do you feel is a lesson that you learned the hard way?
Oh, fudge. I don't know. A lesson that I learned the hard way. Because at the end of the day, life is just trial and error. You choose to learn from your errors, learn from your mistakes, and grow from them. I mean, no experience is a bad experience. That's how I see it. But something I can... Wait, what was the question again?
What's a lesson that you learned the hard way?
See...
We could get back to it later if you want.
Yeah, let's get back to it. Cause
where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In 5 years, I see myself definitely still in trucking, definitely still working at something, whether it's this current project or my own project. Definitely growing this current project. And if it, if I get the most out of it, then staying with that project and following it through all the way to the end, possibly with the intention of starting my own project.
Well, eventually branching off. Okay. So right now you got to do what you got to do, right, with what you have, you think? Like build up?
Yeah, build up what I have and make sure. I want to see if I can do it first. And then maybe if I get a little push, like, all right, well, let's do our own thing. But it's pretty good. What I have going on now, it's how can I say it? I can depend on it. It's pretty stabilized.
So you mentioned you have children. So what would happen if you were to drop dead today? Have you planned anything for them?
Definitely get life insurance. I hope that.
Yeah.
I hope that I gave them enough value to teach them that, hey, nobody's perfect. We all screw up in life. Just keep going. Don't let that hold you back. Don't let your past mistakes define who you are, because people are gonna define you in whatever chapter they meet you at.
Yeah.
They're gonna define you by how they saw you. So let them do that. Only you know what you're capable of. Only you know what you're, what you will do or will not.
Your intention.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great advice.
Yeah.
What would you do? What would you do different in, you could choose one. What would you do different in business or life?
Life, maybe just follow through with school. Stay in school.
What did you really want to be growing up?
I thought I was going to go into something, cute, like be a nurse or something, I didn't really see myself in logistics.
Logistics chose you.
Logistics chose me. I was just like, all right, I have fun. You gotta love what you do, and I have a lot of fun in logistics.
What's one way to have fun in logistics? Just have positive vibes, or what?
Just have positive vibes, yeah. Because the work is there's always something new.
Yeah.
Always something's always gonna come up.
Hard to get bored then?
It's hard to get bored.
Problem solving?
Yep. And trust me, I get bored quick.
What's one thing you would like to improve about yourself?
Many things, actually. I feel like I'm still working on.
Which one bugs you the most? Like you reminded of daily, like it's in the back, like
I feel like I still have to be a better person. I still have to remember that it's not all about me sometimes. Maybe there's somebody else that requires my attention, even though right now it's like, yeah, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I gotta me, but hey, spend some time with others who care about you and prioritize them, not just yourself.
Okay. That sounds good for them.
For them, yeah, because I feel sometimes I'm very selfish, and it's actually been brought up to me a couple times,
yeah. Like what consumed with work and your hustle, or what takes that what
yeah. Just with work or with anything, I need some time for myself, which is true. We all need some time for ourselves, but then when you have work, just balance. It's all a balance. I want to be good at balancing out my life, I guess you could say.
Okay. And we're back. What is a lesson that you learned the hard way?
A lesson that I learned the hard way. I don't know. Don't be too trusting. Don't trust that people are gonna do what you. Like I said, we all perceive people how we meet them. So I feel like sometimes you trust that somebody's gonna help you out more than they actually do.
Trust or assume?
Or assume. Yeah. Don't assume. I make assumptions all the time. Whether it's in my work or in life. Yeah.
I think it's easy to avoid disappointment if you don't expect shit from anyone.
Oh, of course. Yeah. That's why I kind of try to stay in my own little world. Like, screw it. Screw everybody, No, I'm not going to disappoint myself, and I'll just do my own thing. But then it's nice to because I grew up with such a big family, and we were all very together, I guess. Grew up every weekend spending time together. And I just feel like we all kind of now are scattered. And I, more so my family, it's we keep to ourselves now because we were disappointed with how, with certain things.
You said the lesson was about trust, right? Like, you can't trust.
Yeah.
But then that would change you as a person. If you're genuinely a good person and you trust people, maybe the lesson was that not everyone is as loyal as you. Right?
Maybe.
That you brought up trust because of an incident you had? Someone let you down?
Well, yeah, a couple people. Yeah.
And you find yourself, you still trust people?
I mean, not the same people.
Yeah.
But
that makes sense. It better be like that, huh?
Yeah, not the same people, but I have a hard time now opening up and choosing who I'm going to be comfortable around, because it's you keep that guard up. You're just oh shit, they did it once, they turned their back to me once, who's to say they're not going to do it again?
Yeah. And then in business too, you got to have trust in the partnership.
Of course, the partnership that you're having. And yeah, definitely.
Are you very linear? If someone steals a penny, it's just as bad as if they stole $1 from you? Or, you know what I mean? Stealing is stealing.
Stealing is stealing.
When it comes to trust like that?
stealing is stealing. And yeah, like,
So with trust, a lie is a lie, even if it's a little lie?
even if it's a little lie. Yeah.
Mm. Okay. Well, poor Eddie. I'm sorry I had Eddie waiting so long over there. We reached the end of the list. Is there anything you would like to add?
Let's see. No, I think you pretty much covered it all in my logistics experience.
All right. Where can they reach you?
They can reach me. I just made an Instagram for NU Logistics LLC.
And you like
N as in Nancy, U as in Union, Logistics LLC.
All right. I wish you the best with that venture, and thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.